What's up, guys? Welcome back to the garage. Since my work schedule and my family life is hectic AF leading up to my kids' summer vacation the last like 2 or 3 weeks, plus I was on vacation, I'm doing a lot of catch up, right? And what I'm talking about specifically is the Cannes Film Festival, because obviously we're going to have a lot of implications coming out of that festival in terms of what's going to win the Palme d'Or, what films are going to be the highest regarded when it comes to their awards potential, which of course I'm going to be covering very heavily on this channel the further and further we get along in the year. This is really the first one, right? The first big swing at the plate, if you will, for award season. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through all the Cannes films basically in competition, although there's at least one, maybe two out of competition that I also want to talk about that I think are Oscar players prior to the festival starting. So in other words, with sight unseen, very little, if any, reviews for a lot of these films based on who was involved, whether that's director, actor, studio, distributor. Maybe this is a player, right? I'm going to look at the Rotten Tomatoes scores, if they're on there, which they should be if the critical community is there putting out the reviews. I haven't looked at any of them until literally this video. The Letterboxd scores, which is going to be a nice mix of critics and the general public, because of course people, especially like French citizens and people that, travel and have a good time doing this, go to the festivals around the world, and they might not necessarily be working them. They just buy a ticket and go to the festival, and they want to see certain films. They see them, they give their opinions. If they're on Letterboxd, that's where you can find those. And then if there's a Metacritic score, which sometimes does not come until closer to the release date because it has to be weighted depending on how many they have to choose from. So we'll look at those three main components in terms of like the reception from the critics all the way to kind of like the general public when you're looking at that Letterboxd score. First thing I want to do is show you my Oscar predictions, which I updated, I believe, on like May 12th or something like that. Let me bring that in here first so you can kind of see what we're looking at. So this is available on my website May 5th, so it's actually been longer than I thought. Now, I do once a month. I don't go crazy. I might do changes in Award Expert. By the way, follow me over there if you follow award season. But in terms of like on the website and making videos for it, until we get to like November, it's only going to be like once a month. So I'm not going to talk about all these films, just the ones that I know that are at Cannes. So Fatherland and Fjord, I had at 4 and 5 there. Let's see. All of a Sudden from Hamaguchi I had on my list. And that's just in my top 20. So those three we're going to look at first and see how they're doing. I also had Sheep in the Box from Koreeda at one point in my top 20s. There are some that are out of competition or in the Unsart and Regard category that I'm also very, very interested in if they can have legs this season. And that would be Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, which is probably my most anticipated film of the festival. Club Kid from actor Jordan Firstman. I wanted to see how his debut went with some folks online. Let's start with these first few that I have in the mix here, which would be Fatherland, Fjord, and All of a Sudden. Let's start with Fatherland from director Paweł Pawlikowski. So looking at Letterboxd, there's this really cool feature. It's like a Google Chrome extension that you can get, and I have it, so it makes it a lot easier for me to talk about these films, I guess, because it's all on the same screen here. So in looking at this over here, which is all of the various scores from the three main outlets that I wanted to look at, starting with that Rotten Tomatoes score, it is a 94%. And as you can see there, it's got an average of an 8 out of 10. And that's going to be critical score. There's not an audience score yet because obviously the general audience, it's not open yet for them to put their reviews or their ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, even though they can come to a social media site such as Letterboxd and do so. That's why Letterboxd is kind of important to kind of gauge the public's affinity or possible dislike for a film, because that can hurt it at the end of the day and at the box office. So 94% is very, very good. My mentality when I'm thinking about Oscar predictions, at least for nominations, wins would be a little bit different. But talking about nominations, I mean, we're in May, right? So we're not necessarily going to be talking about winners right now, even though we might think we know who's going to win. We don't. Unless you're me last year with One Battle After Another. You're welcome. But my thought process, generally speaking, I'm not going to put you in a Best Picture field of 10 for the Academy. I mean, you could get away with a 60 maybe on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think actually is the fresh rating. Anything below a 60 is rotten. So it's basically if you're rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, if you're that green splat symbol, I'm not going to put you in the Best Picture 10. Similarly, if you're below like a 60 on Metacritic, which would put you, I believe, in the red based on their system, same thing. You're not going to be in my predictions for a Best Picture nomination, even though you could get other things like acting. Because, the grade for the film being in the red is not, somebody's performance being in the red. It might be a really, really great performance. Renee Zellweger and Judy, right? A stellar green tier performance. But the movie may have been in the yellow or the red for a lot of people as an entire project, just as an example. And then when it comes to Letterboxd, I would say anything below like a 3.8 2, like in the 3 to a 3.2 range. You really need to be above that to have like strength, where most people are giving you at a minimum probably a 3 at a minimum, up into of course a 5, which would be perfect on Letterboxd. So those are kind of what I'm looking at. It also has the IMDb curve here, which I don't always take into consideration, but this is another one that's actually very, very similar to Letterboxd because it's going to have a mix of both. Just letting you guys know that's kind of the baseline that I would need to be like, okay, you're still alive in the Best Picture race. So with that being said, Fatherland is still alive. Let's look at what some people are saying about it that I follow and that I know that are there, and I know some of these dudes personally. Matt's a buddy of mine, and he gave it 4 stars. Deceptively understated but precise film from Powell. So muted in its storytelling that it never quite feels like it reaches its full emotional potential. Interesting. Quiet, lingering pain running through it, it powerfully reflects the German psyche in the aftermath of World War II. Let's see what he says about the performances here. Zischler and Sandra Hüller deliver 2 beautifully restrained performances, while August Diehl leaves a lasting impression in a single scene shot in one take. That's pivotal information. I didn't have August Diehl in my supporting actor field, but I was thinking about it. He was on my extended list. That would probably make me leave him off there if he's only in one scene. I would think he's probably not going to be able to shoehorn his way into there unless there's a huge Fatherland wave and it gets, 10 plus nominations. Cinematography is stunning, black and white, which I knew from the stills I've seen. It's his least favorite of the, I guess, Cold War trilogy is what this would probably be. It's still entrancing and a heavy piece of work. It's only 82 minutes long, which I like. And the Academy members may like that too. Be a little more palatable for them. This one I think is still in good shape. I'll give you my prediction at the end as to who I think is going to win the Palme as well, because right now I do have a film in my predictions, but after seeing all this, that could change too. My buddy Cody's there, and he only gave it 3 versus Matt's 4. He says it was gorgeous to look at, which is obvious. Sandra Hüller, stellar, double obvious. But it spread far too thinly over only 82 minutes, which includes the credits. It just felt like it was about to make some really interesting connections, but then it was time to leave the theater. Okay, so he feels like it's a little underdone or incomplete. That's interesting. As you can see, 90 people gave it 2, 70 people gave it 5. They kind of cancel each other out. So everything's going to be in that 2.5 to 4.5 range. But these overall scores from Metacritic at a 90 and Rotten Tomatoes at a 94, also given that the director has been there before, if that had been a field of 10, I would imagine that Cold War probably would have been in Best Picture that year. It was in cinematography, I believe. International feature, of course. So it's not like this is his first rodeo with the Academy either. I'm looking for this to continue to be a player, and it's probably going to be in my top 10 still when I do my June updates. Next would be Fjord from Christian Mungiu. As you can see I had that right below Fatherland. So I had that at my number 5 a few weeks ago. Let's see if it stays there. This is one that as I'm recording, I think just premiered there yesterday because I saw some rumblings on Twitter about it, but I have not read any of those as of yet. So in going straight to the scores right here, and by the way, Christian Mungiu is a little different because he doesn't have the same thing that like Polakowski has when it comes to the Academy. They know him, and he's won the Palme before. Right here for 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. I always say it backwards. I get the numbers in the wrong place. So I had to click on that. RMN, I think that was also eligible, or maybe it was the Un Certain Regard that it was nominated for in its year. So he's definitely a Cannes player, which is also why you kind of have to put a little bit of a filter on that lens when you're looking at some of this stuff, because, a lot of times directors or even actors to a certain extent will be really popular with certain festival groups or just the festival circuit in general, but then the Academy won't mess with it for whatever reason. So I'm not saying that's going to happen here with Mungiu. First thing I'm going to do is jump to the scores, just like I did with the other one. So this one has even a higher rating in pretty much all categories than Fatherland did, except for Metacritic, which is a weighted measurement of all critics that is supposed to be more on par with what Rotten Tomatoes should say. It's hard to really explain, but the way they use their algorithm in Metacritic with a limited number of critic reviews. Whereas Rotten Tomatoes, it's an all or nothing rating, right? It's not a weighted scale. It's just like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So it's a lot easier to get, a 100 on Rotten Tomatoes because you just need everybody to give it a thumbs up. Even though they may have issues with it, it may be a mixed review, it might still get a thumbs up from them. So that's why the Metacritic score, at least when you're looking at critically, is a little bit more telling than like the Rotten Tomatoes score, but of course you want to have a good one in both outlets. So 92 is better than Fatherland was. 7.6 over on IMDb, I believe, is better. I think it was a 7.2 on Fatherland. and 3.8 on Letterboxd is better. The Metacritic's the only one that's different, but it's still in the green. It looks like it's down to a 79 because it only has one right here, mixed review, no negative reviews. My point is, there's nothing wrong with these scores. They're good. Now let's see what people are saying about it, about the narrative, I've got, so Karsten, who I follow, doesn't really leave a lot of lengthy reviews on Letterboxd, but he did give it 4 stars. Something juicy. He never stops looking like my favorite bald Twitch streamer. He must be talking about Sebastian Stan there. I've heard great things about his performance even before Cannes. Renate, the chance to deliver 2 nuanced, ambiguous, and restrained performances that constantly had me shifting sympathies and feeling deeply uncomfortable while I wrestled with and questioned the film's challenging themes. Okay. The kids may or may not be alright, but for Myung-ju, this is yet another exceptional examination of society decay. I like that. Did he mention Sebastian Stan here? It affords Sebastian Stan. Okay. Oh, okay. He was saying the 2 nuanced performances were her and Sebastian Stan. Okay. So he's got it there as a 1-2 punch, I think, as a dynamic duo, which is fine. That's to be expected. But I'm wondering if they're both leads or if Renate would be considered supporting here and Sebastian's lead. I'm wondering if I can get that from some of these blurbs. Who else? David Ehrlich's always a little tougher on these films, but 3.5 is a good score. A very lengthy review here. I won't go through that on the video, but I'll look at that later. Let's see. My friend Cody, once again, surprising me, as Matt gave it a 4.5, but Cody's giving it a 3, which is not that that's a bad score, but let's see what brought it down for him. I can see what Christian Myung-ju is going for, but it's so insanely cold, literally, and detached that I felt miles away from it. Still, it clips along deliberately, and I adore a story about prickly people who you still somehow feel sympathy for. And he's hot for balding Sebastian Stan. I don't know why he doesn't. Cody, we know each other, man. I'm right here, man. I'm just kidding. Sebastian's got me beat. Brian Rose there. This is his first trip to Cannes. That's a collaborator of mine. I know Brian. Congratulations on going to Cannes for the first time, buddy. He says, Myung-ju's Fjord is one of the finest films of the year, a tense and captivating drama about parents of abusing their children. Renate Reinsma and Sebastian Stan, riveting and Oscar-worthy. All right. Another 4.5. Another good score from one of my friends there. My buddy Ryan is over there right now as well. He just says it's going to spark fascinating conversations, but you can see the 4.5. So the scores and everything I've really read about it, there's nothing negative really. I mean, Cody's is the lowest score, but that was even a fairly positive review, and he was praising the performances. I think this could be what breaks Myung-ju into the Oscar race. Everything I've just seen, I'm leaving it in my 10. And then going back to my predictions, the only other one that's in competition at Cannes that I had in my top 20 would be All of a Sudden from Hamaguchi. Of course, the director of Drive My Car a few years ago that was successful with the Oscars, getting nominations there. Top of the line. By the way, spoiler alert, this is what I currently, before reading anything, before looking at this screen right here, I've not looked at it, what I have predicted to win the Palme d'Or. I put that in like a week ago on Award Expert, maybe even longer, 10 days ago. And I just said, you know what? Park Chan-wook's the jury president this year. Hamaguchi's a very established, well-respected filmmaker. I've heard that this one is going to be very emotional. It's going to have wonderful narrative. It's going to have great lead performances. I've got this in a lot of my Oscar predictions, at least the ones I did in May, and I had it as my Palme winner. So let's see if I was way off there. Hope this thing didn't bomb. All right, so looking at the scores, we're good. Fam, chat, we are good. 100% of Rotten Tomatoes is brilliant. That's 25. Critic ratings would be an 8.4 from the critics. So that's people that are like Rotten Tomatoes approved, essentially. 8.4 out of 10 among those folks. Only one mixed review, but 12 positive on Metacritic, giving it an 86, which is awesome. 3.8, I think, was tied with Fjord in terms of a Letterboxd curve. Most people are sitting right there at that 4 out of 5, which is plenty for a Best Picture nomination. And you have quite a few, actually, 4.5 and 5s. I mean, that is a lot of 5s. That may be the most 5s of the 3 that we've looked at so far. So I feel good about that, too. 7.7 on Letterboxd is only 0.1 lower than Fjord. So nothing wrong there. And it's higher than Fjord on Metacritic. So this is staying in my 20. In fact, this is probably going to be put into my 10, especially if it wins the Palme. I'm not going to be doing my official updates until June, but in looking at them real quick, I can go ahead and tell you that I was going out on a limb for Pressure, which comes out this weekend for Memorial Day here in the States. I don't think that's going to happen because everybody's telling me it's not going to happen. And then, of course, we always have the possibility of like The Social Reckoning missing the mark, or, these blockbusters like Project Hail Mary or Dune Part 3 that I have both of those in right now. One of those could very easily miss, especially with The Odyssey in the mix for a lot of text this year. So something's going to be taken out there in a couple weeks when I do my updates, and I'm assuming, unless something comes out and blows me away in the time being, All of a Sudden will be my top 10. I'm assuming. Now, if it wins the Palme d'Or, I mean, there's no fucking question. But even if it doesn't, based on what we were just looking at here, I'm probably going to be be comfortable doing that. Let's see what some folks are saying about this one. Cody knows I love him, so I'm not picking on him. But, you know, what's interesting is that he's been lukewarm on everything that most people have been pretty positive on. In some cases, 4.5, 5 positive on. But now you look at all of a sudden, and we have our first like glowing review from Cody, who I trust, by the way. It's not just some random dude. He knows what he's doing over there. He says a 2-pronged attack on the head and the heart. When one character wheeled out a whiteboard for a private lecture on capitalism, I knew this would be for me. He sobbed through the final 45 minutes. Emotionality is a big thing, especially with the Academy and just award season in general. It builds complex emotional house of cards. And then Ryan says 5 stars. And believe me, Ryan is a tough cookie, okay? He's not giving out 5 stars. I mean, I think he gave One Battle 5. Maybe he didn't even give One Battle 5 last year. I can't remember. But it's not like he's handing those out like candy. And he's got a 5 here. And it says a masterpiece of the highest order, a cinematic game changer. Put that on the poster, by the way, guys. So all of a sudden is neon as well. And I mean, I think anybody watching this video, at least at this point in the video, probably knows this already, but neon has won something like the last 7 Palme d'Ors. I think it's something like that. They won 7 in a row going back to Parasite. So it's also in my best interest that I have a neon film predicted to win the Palme, because it's usually neon versus everybody else at Cannes. So, you know, could neon lose that? Of course, they're not going to win it every single year for the rest of time. But with this film being as regarded as it is, 100, it's the only 100% we've seen on Rotten Tomatoes yet. It's also tied with the highest letterbox curve. It's emotional. It's going to stick with people. It deals with a young lady who has a terminal illness, which, like I said, the emotionality is going to be something that leaves a mark, I think. I'm probably leaving this as my Palme d'Or winner, just so you guys know. And it's, like I said earlier, most likely it's going to replace one of those big budget films that I mentioned in my top 10 for Best Picture. Now, looking at my predictions that I had for May, which of course are somewhat outdated, there's a few that won't be on here next month in this top 20. I don't have any other Cannes competitive films in my 20 on this list that I did a few weeks ago. So I'm going to look over here at the Cannes site. I'm going to look at the ones on Letterboxd that are on this list that I thought could possibly make noise at the Academy. So just going down the list, we'll start with Bitter Christmas from Almodovar. He's a filmmaker that's had his name kind of passed around the Academy before as well. All right, so we're still in the green, but now you see what I mean? We're getting, and then you look at these down here, these star ratings, we're getting a little bit more in the danger zone. Now, we are still on the fresh side of things on Rotten Tomatoes. Would essentially be a 7 out of 10 from the critics, but it's 81, 69 on Metacritic out of weight of 9. The lowest IMDb score, I believe, so far at 6.5. And tied for the lowest at 3.2 on that letterbox. But if you look at the curve, it's all substantially in the middle of the road here. So everything's basically from a 3 to a 4, which is fine. That's not bad. Like I said, you don't want to be below a 3, and they're not. They're at 3.2. So I think Almodovar's fine here. I would not put this in my Best Picture 10 currently unless it wins the Palme. Based on these scores, his lineage in Hollywood, or in the industry, I should say, and that prize of the Palme d'Or, or even the second place. If it gets a prize at Cannes, then I would maybe consider it, but I think we've got 3 Cannes films in right now. I do, and I had heard that Fjord was predominantly in the English language. I don't know if anybody that's been to Cannes can confirm that in the comments here. Then that might not categorize as a international feature at the Academy Awards, because over 50% of the dialogue, right, has to be not in the English language, a different language. So if that's the case, then you've got your 2 international feature nominees in Best Picture with Fatherland, which I assume is mostly in German, and All of a Sudden, which is most likely in Japanese. So Fjord doesn't have to be considered an international feature contender and then show up in Best Picture, because a lot of people are going to say, well, we can't get 3 internationals in Best Picture. If that was going to happen, it would have happened last year with Panahi, which I agree with. But maybe that's a little loophole that we could use to get all 3 of those in. But even still, that makes it even harder for movies like Bitter Christmas, because if only 2 do get in, I think it's between Hamaguchi, Fjord, and Fatherland. And frankly, Fjord might be the one to get the short end of the stick there, just because Munju does not have the credibility that the other 2 filmmakers have in terms of Oscar resume. I'm just guessing, but I'm hoping all 3 get in, which is what I'm probably going to have in my June predictions. But I don't think Bitter Christmas is getting in unless it ends up swiping one of those prestigious awards in a few days. Going back to the site, Coward from Lucas Diant, who is a filmmaker that I really, really like. I had this on my radar, but I don't necessarily have it as a Best Picture contender. International feature, Sure, maybe. I loved his movie Close that he did a few years ago, which did get an international feature, which is a touching film about friendship, coming of age film. There's no ratings on it, no reviews on it. I don't know. Maybe this one has not premiered yet, so I'll need to come back and see what the reception to this one is. I want to see the results for Parallel Tales. Asghar Farhadi is an interesting filmmaker who's had success in the past. Oh boy, never mind. Good God, I did not know this. Okay, holy shit. Well, this will be a short conversation. 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. Good God, a 4.7 out of 10. 42 in the yellow. I'm surprised that's not red. It must be below 40 as red on Metacritic. But yeah, I think it goes up to an 80 scale, actually. I can't remember. So yeah, all right, that's in the yellow. 6.2 is not horrible, but then a 2 point, look at this curve. We are fucking back, guys. Wow. So you've got quite a few 1-star ratings all the way over to a bunch of 4-star ratings. And then just a handful of 4.5. You got some brave souls giving it a 5. The poster kind of looked like After the Hunt to me. I mean, I'm talking about the posters look very similar. That kind of turned me off right away. I hate when they just kind of phone it in. The Oscar expert, Cole, says thought-provoking because you'll spend hours mulling over why this was made. Oof. Not good, guys. Not good. I'm not even going to read these. Nobody here. In fact, Cody gave it Matt and Cody both gave it a 2.5. So you can see what Cody says here. Just as the film's dramatics kick in, the screenplay decides it doesn't have time for her anymore. Wow. Okay, so not good. So Parallel Tales is out. I never had it in my Best Picture 10. I think I had it in my 20 on my very, very first video back in April. And I removed it shortly after, so it looks like that was a good sign. So that will not be showing back up. R.I.P. for Hottie there. Paper Tiger from James Gray is the one that features a lot of big Hollywood names like Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson. I remember when we did our draft, our Best Picture draft, Matt took this one, I believe. Two brothers chase the American dream, but find themselves in a brutal world of violence and corruption. You know, James Gray, I like him. I like his vision and his style. I really do. I like how all his movies are a little bit different time periods, different, characterizations. So I don't really know what we're going to get here because it probably is going to be something different. But let's see what people are saying about it. I didn't have it in my Best Picture 20, as you saw, but I definitely had it in my extended list. 3.4 is perfectly fine. You're right there. You're right where you need to be. 7.1 is also not bad, although the curve is kind of weird over there, especially considering there's 11.1 ratings. That's kind of weird. 85 on Rotten Tomatoes is perfectly fine. No issues there. And 78 is fine also. It does look like this one is a little bit more mixed among the crowd, though. It has 7 overall mixed reviews, which is quite a bit, considering what else we've looked at so far. Folks I follow, let's see, Matt only gave it a 3, and I know he likes James Gray too. It's an old school American crime drama about brotherhood, ambition, and pushing back against the forces that change that are far greater than yourself. Let's see if he says anything about the performances here. Adam Driver is captivating. Miles Teller plays the grounded straight man. Scarlett Johansson seems to think she's giving an awards-worthy performance. What? But the material never gives her enough depth to fully justify it. Oh, wow. Oh, so she's overacting is what you're saying. I don't know, man. They might love it. They love ScarJo. I mean, I do too. Don't take that the wrong way, but I don't know. Never count her out, So in looking at this overall snapshot, it kind of has what it needs. Ryan, who I told you he was a hard ass. He gave it a 2.5 here. It's a solid crime film that is ruined by a couple bad acting choices and a god-awful ending. Yeah, that's not good. I think maybe Scarlett Johansson might be considered to be a little extra in this one. Oh boy. Going down the list here of other ones that I had high hopes for. No pun intended, let's look at Hope. This is a film that I'm very excited for. I think it's like a creature feature action film, which I don't know about the Oscar chances just based on that alone, but also, Alicia Vikander, Ho-Yan, who I really love from Squid Game, Michael Fassbender, Taylor Russell, a lot of great actors, American actors too, which is interesting with this filmmaker. Being a South Korean production and Park Chan-wook being on the jury, it could do something. Let's see. Before I look at my friends' ratings, I'll see here 3.3, not as high as you want to be, but also kind of a crazy curve here, but there's quite a few, really a lot, 352 4-star ratings, a handful of 5s, but yeah, it's all pretty much in that 2.5 to 4 range. 7 on IMDb is good, 81 on on Rotten Tomatoes is good, 69 on Metacritic is good, and it even has a 7.1 already over on Sense Critique. So that's fine. Not good amongst my trustworthy allies here, though, for the most part. Cody, who we've been picking on a lot today, but let's see, because I line up with him a lot in terms of what we like. Fucking rocks. Not much in the way of clear substance, just a super well done action monster movie. The Host meets Eddington. I love that, Cody. Resident Evil was somehow up for the Palme. So, man, he's a good dude. I love reading his reviews. That does paint an image, though, doesn't it? It also tells me that it's going to be really fun, but it's not going to be anywhere near the Academy Awards. So I can go ahead and tell you, just based on what Cody said there, and already kind of thinking, oh, this is like a violent action film. I don't know what it's going to do. Let's see what some of the negative ones say. David, he always does the longest ones. He says, the creature reveal and hope doesn't just serve up a spectacularly unimaginative monster and doesn't just make us watch it clip around the film's Jeju Island set with all the credibility of a glitch in a computer game, but also has the tragic disadvantage of being introduced into one of the most sublime and muscular passages of any 21st century genre movie. So I think he is saying the visual effects, or I guess lack thereof, brought the movie down. And I think that's what's being echoed over here by the brothers. I can't think of another film that's so ruined by extremely undercooked CGI and poor monster design. Yeah, I mean, the fact that this is a monster movie anyway, and especially that it's an action monster movie, because, you know, Frankenstein did have success last year, but an action creature feature, I don't think the Academy's ready for that. I don't. I mean, they could prove me wrong. I mean, we've seen Amy Madigan, we've seen The Substance, we saw Frankenstein. I mean, you know, Nosferatu a couple years ago got some text. I mean, they could surprise me, but especially if the VFX are off the table, and not only are they off the table, but they might be laughable and a big sore thumb sticking out. I don't think hope's going anywhere, even though I'm very, very, very excited to see this one, even with that VFX kind of knocks that I saw there. I do want to look at Sheep in the Box because I had that as my runner-up for the Palme if all of a sudden didn't win. So I want to see if I'm going to leave Sheep in the Box as like my number 2, or I think they call it the Grand Jury Prize maybe, as the runner-up. You know, and I went heavy like Japanese, Korean, Asian cinema on purpose because I feel like we're kind of due for that as well. But let's see what people are saying about Sheep in the Box. Hopefully this one hit. Koreeda is a master. I mean, Shoplifters, which won the Palme, by the way, and especially Monster, which I really enjoyed. It's just a really visionary Japanese filmmaker. Love him. So, set in the near future, I believe the mother works as an architect and she's married to someone who runs a construction company. They decide to welcome a humanoid robot into their home as their son. And I believe they become extremely attached to it. Now, this is a fucking bummer. Man, this is a bummer. Okay, so my first real disappointment and I guess misfire of the festival so far is I had this one winning the Grand Jury Prize or the runner-up. It's not going to happen, guys. Look at these scores. 59 on Rotten Tomatoes, 57 on Metacritic, only a 6.2, which I'm pretty sure is the lowest, even lower than Parallel Tales, right? Yikes. And the letterbox curve's actually not bad, except it's not enough this way. It's not enough to the right. It's all kind of going this way. It's up, it's going downward instead of going like, an even hill, if you will. So this doesn't look good for any awards. The only thing that could maybe save it is the reputation of Koreeda. I got to imagine Park Chan-wook and others are a huge fan of Koreeda's. It's probably a really well-made film. But yeah, I'm not even going to look at the reviews here. I'll see what a couple of my buddies said that gave it a 2. It's a miss for me. A surprisingly lifeless sci-fi family drama. It never hits the emotional force that it intends to. Oof, it feels unearned. Koreeda's gift for intimate family storytelling and his understanding of the human condition are usually so on point that it's quite incredible to see a story this seemingly tailored to his sensibilities end up feeling so hollow. Ugh. And even the ideas around AI remain vague and unfocused. Man, yikes. That really bums me out. I actually had this in my top 20 at one point for Best Picture, International Feature, maybe Koreeda for Director, possibly one of the acting noms, maybe even the child actor. But now it's like nothing. Looking at this screen right here, the movie's not out yet, don't get me wrong, but this is just a Cannes pool of people. Unless it somehow upsets and wins one of the major prizes at the festival, I'm not touching it. And that sucks because this was probably, along with Schoenbrun's for Camp Miasma, this was probably my most anticipated movie that I was so excited to see, which I still am, but this brings me down, man. But no, this will not be going anywhere near my predictions at this point. All right, well, that's a bummer. I don't even know how to continue. Let's see. I think there was only one other, or two other ones. The Man I Love. Let's look at that real quick. I believe that one has premiered already. Let's see. I've got, in my most recent predictions that I did back on May 5th, as you saw, I had Rami Malek in lead actor. I believe this one premiered yesterday. So again, there's no Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that on there yet. The reviews probably haven't even been submitted. So I'll come back and check it, but in looking at what little there is on Letterboxd, which is not much, it's like less than 10 reviews right now, most people are in the 3.5 to 4.5 range, which is a good start. Cody saw it, but did not leave a review yet, and nobody's left a review. It's probably premiering yesterday or today. It's a very short film, 95 minutes. period setting in 1980s, dealing with a very historical, kind of sad subject in the AIDS epidemic. Rami Malek, a previous Oscar winner. So I think this could have some traction. Ira Sachs, decorated filmmaker, right? I'm excited to see The Man I Love, and I think it is going to be a good movie, but there's no reference point for me right now. Before June, there probably will be when I do my updates. But I am probably leaving Malik right now unless I see some feedback where there's like, oh, he was kind of like the Scarlett Johansson feedback. But otherwise, he's probably staying in my actor, but I might not do anything with the movie quite yet. And then the last one that I really wanted to look at before I look at a couple that are out of competition is Minotaur. Now, I've been talking about Cody a lot on this video, and he knows I love him if he goes back and watches this later. But he drafted this on our Best Picture draft, and I had never heard of it until that point. Zvyaginstev, the Russian filmmaker, has a lot of like a really cool narrative within himself, because I think it was related to COVID, but he was like out of the game for years. It was very sick, and then came back to filmmaking, and this is kind of his return to filmmaking. So that narrative is really cool if the movie's good, if it can hit. We don't have a lot of reviews yet, not enough to put on Rotten Tomatoes yet, but a 93 on Metacritic is a great start. And then if you're looking at the curve on Letterboxd, this is also one of the best that we've seen. There's no average rating yet because there's not enough, but as you can see, everything is really in this 3.5 to 4.5 range, which is beautiful. And it's probably going to be in that 3.5 or so average. And then look at my friends. Nobody that I follow has given it less than a 4, which I think overall, at least among my personal like people that I follow, is the best. So that's kind of crazy. So, you know, Cody, who I trust, hasn't even logged it yet, and he was the one that told me about this movie. So the premise doesn't necessarily sound like, oh, that sounds really Oscar-y, like a movie like Fatherland, for example, or, you know, even All of a Sudden, to a certain extent, with the emotionality and the tear-jerkers and all that. This is more like, you know, I don't want to say like Fatal Attraction, but it's, you know, kind of maybe a more highbrow version of like a Fatal Attraction. And, you know, I know that did get Oscar nominations, but I just mean it doesn't scream like, oh, this is an Academy movie. But I think with Andre's narrative and kind of what he's gone through as a director, as a filmmaker, and wanting to get back into the game, and if the film's hitting like this, 93 on Metacritic, you got to think it's going to be in the 90s on Rotten Tomatoes when all's said and done, 3.5 to 4 on Letterboxd. It's definitely one that you need to have in the conversation that I will probably insert into at least my top 20. I'll tell you at the end of the video, but I think this might be the movie that I replace Sheep in the Box with for that like number 2 spot, or maybe even the number 1 spot because of that director narrative. I got to decide. Why didn't I think about this ahead of time? I got to decide this in real time. Oh God. All right, there's really only 2 more that I want to look at that are not in competition, but I think they are at least should be somewhat on your radar for award season. Maybe not the Oscars necessarily, although that would be like inspired, and I freaking love that. The first one is my most anticipated film for the rest of the year, not just Cannes, and that's Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma from Jane Schoenbrunn, the filmmaker for I Saw the TV Glow, which was one of my favorite movies of the year last year. So in looking at this, this is one of the movies that premiered on day 1, I believe, of the festival. And like I said, it's not in competition, but yeah, check this out, guys. 91 on 100%. That's our second 100. I think All of a Sudden was 100 as well, right? I think. So that's it. Those are the only 2 that I've looked at today that are at 100 on Rotten Tomatoes. 3.8 is very high on Letterboxd. 6.2 is actually a little lower, which is weird. It looks like maybe it got review bombed over here. Why would people do that? Oh, maybe the transphobia. People, stop giving stuff 1 star. What is that doing? It's just showing that you're a hateful person. But I don't know why there's so many 1-star reviews, unless they're just being review bombed over there. Quite a few 10 out of 10s as well. And then everybody's just kind of in here, you know, in this like, you know, 6 to 9 range. The 91 and the 100, though, from like credible reviews, and then even a 7 over on Sense Critique. Those are great scores. The problem with Schoenbrunn is they make movies that are not awards friendly. They're really fucking good. They look good. They have great performances. I Saw the TV Glow. You can't convince me right now that wasn't easily one of the best 5 films for cinematography in its year, for example. You know, score. I mean, you know, any number of things, especially on the technical side. And then some tremendous performances too. So this is going to be more of the same, but I think it's going to even be a little bit more horror than TV Glow was. Now, the Academy is leaning more horror, right? And we've mentioned some on this video already. And, you know, Sinners, which is technically a horror movie, broke the record for nominations. So it's not like they're not going to do it or they can't do it. I just think that Schoenbrunn's style is much more like youthful, vibrant. I'm trying to be nice here, but, you know, not speaking to the old sensibilities of the Academy literally at all, because you would need to bring that section of the Oscars along with you, at least in some facet and have the support there to kind of get beyond the speed bumps that you might be facing there. But as you can see, some folks I follow, man, we're like high on this movie. Cody, who I've mentioned, it's got a blend of horror, humor, romance, and satire. Gillian Anderson is a reclusive actress who steals the show. You know, I thought about maybe this movie getting some representation from her in supporting actress. And I actually am kind of weak in that category. I'm going to look at it here in a second. But yeah, high reviews. I don't think Best Picture would be on the table unless we're in a substance type of situation. And this is Mubi, which was the substance. And Plan B, which, you know, is Brad Pitt, a very prominent production studio that has a lot of pull in Hollywood. These two components, Plan B and Mubi, and then if, let's just say, Gillian Anderson can get a supporting actress nomination, and then you've got Ava Victor, who made noise this past season with Sorry Baby, could it be enough push? I'm probably going to stick with maybe Gillian Anderson as supporting actress. And, you know, even though Amy Madigan was kind of a rarity doing that this year, where she was the only nomination for the film, and it also happened to be a horror film, which I'm pretty sure this will be too, or at least in some ways, it would probably need something else. And I hate saying that because Amy Madigan just proved me wrong there, but that was different. You know, Amy Madigan was 75 or whatever years old she is, been in the industry for over 40 years. She hasn't been nominated in over 40 years. She had a narrative that could carry her regardless of what the film was doing. You know, Gillian Anderson might not necessarily have that. And if this is not a palatable movie for the Academy, she might have a tough road. But if it can get her, maybe screenplay, right? For Show and Run. They were the writer, right? Let's make sure. Yeah, they wrote it. Yeah. You know, screenplay, cinematography. Eric, you also did TV Glow. I'm telling you right now, that was one of my, if not my favorite, one of my favorite, like top 3 cinematographies that year. And it didn't get nominated. So seeing that right away, and I don't know these, I know of a couple of these films, but I haven't seen them. But knowing that, I can tell you the movie's going to look beautiful, and it's going to be incorporating those like horror components that I love from slasher movies, like camp slashers. So, you know, right away, a lot of it says no because of the horror thing, and because I saw the TV Glow blanks with the Academy. But a lot of it says yes for other things like cinematography and Gillian Anderson. Man, I'm so excited to see this movie, though. I got a lot of FOMO doing this video. I hate you guys. And then the last one on here that I was going to look at that I thought might be able to make some noise would be Club Kid. So let's see what that's all about from Jordan Firstman. He's a young actor, actually, that is making his directorial debut, I believe, with this one. And this one also is very high on my watch list. No Rotten Tomatoes or anything like that, but a 4.2 on Letterboxd is by far the highest, right? I don't think we've had anything over a 4 yet. That's really high. Over 1,000 ratings, too, so it's not like just a few people. Wow. 6.5 on IMDb is a little more tame, but that's still really good. Carson says, knock my socks off. This is one of those home run debuts. He's a star. That's what I was kind of hoping. Sean Fennessy didn't give it a rating, but it says absolutely fucking wonderful. Man. Jordan Firstman channels his inner Sean Baker to find incredible humanity in the underground LGBTQ plus club scene. Even the child has the surname Baker. Full of laughs, kinetic film, exceptional. Yeah, dude. Cody gave it 4.5. Ryan gave it a 4. Sophia gave it a 4.5. This is the surprise of the festival for me so far. An instant New York classic and a brand new spin on the coming of age tale. Man, could this do something? Young guy, 34 years old, it says. That right away is like tough, right? I mean, Timothée Chalamet has been battling it for years. But they just aren't as quick to honor, you know, young dudes, especially the director's branch. You've got to have paid your dues, right? You got to have a long resume. You've been working in the industry. You're about to die because you've been doing it for so long. Then they give you an award. I don't know if it could do an Oscar, but I'm so excited to see this. And I'm so happy that everybody loved it. I was afraid I was going to come in here and be like, oh, stick to acting, dude. This is not your thing, but this looks great. This is the highest Letterboxd rating, but this is probably like a Letterboxd movie, right? It probably speaks to that niche of cinema lovers. Real quick, I'll just show you over my Oscar predictions. This is what I'm at, and after seeing everything that we looked at today from the Cannes contenders, I'm leaving Fjord and Fatherland in my 10. Pretty sure. Also pretty sure that if you look down there at number 14, all of a sudden from Hamaguchi, I'm moving into my 10. I'm probably going to be replacing Pressure or maybe even Cry to Heaven, or yeah, probably one of those two, because Cry to Heaven still does not have a distributor. And if it had one and I knew who the distributor was, it would make it a lot easier for me to leave that kind of lingering around. But yeah, I think all of a sudden is in the 10 for something that's going to fall out here. And then, you know, some other things that I told you guys about, like supporting actress, for example. Like in looking at that, I had All of a Sudden in the mix there, but no other Cannes films. Supporting actor, no other Cannes films in the mix, although it could be when I do my updates. Best actress, I had Sandra Hüller in the mix for Fatherland, but I had her actually in the 5 for a movie called Rose. that already premiered at the Berlin Festival. I did also have her in lead. That's why I need to find out, is she lead or is she supporting there? I think she's probably lead, but it sounds like it could be either. Best Actor, Sebastian Stan for Fjord. I will probably move into my top 5 now. I was really close to having him at 5, but I moved Pattinson into my top 5 instead for Primetime, which I'm still very high on. Sebastian Stan's got the previous nomination. I mean, that's really what the tiebreaker is probably going to end up being. Also, it might be a little easier when we find out if Matt Damon's going to be a thing for the Odyssey, if that's going to hit with acting performances, or if that's just going to be text. You know, we'll find out in a couple months when the movie comes out and when some real reviews start rolling in. Right now, I think it's silly to not at least have him in the, top 7 or 8. So right now, I've got him in the 5, but that could change once the movie is released. Then director, Fatherland, Palakowski, Christian Mungiu, I have in the near misses. That could change. That's it in terms of Cannes players. But that could all change. I want Hamaguchi to be in there. So if all of a sudden wins the Palme, that could very easily throw him into my director predictions at the Oscars. I really want Denis Villeneuve to hit this year for a Dune movie, because the last 2, even though they've racked up a total of 17, I think, nominations, he doesn't have a director nomination. Every video I end up going on a soapbox about that, so I'll just stop there. But I'll just say that I'm leaving in my 5 until the Academy shows me they're going to break my heart again. But if that doesn't happen, you could have another Cannes filmmaker in the mix there. So not a lot of changes there either. So, and then one last look at where Best Picture stood as of like 2 or 3 weeks ago. This will all be updated in early June, so make sure you follow me for those updates and subscribe to the channel. All right, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to this Cannes reaction video. I'm probably not going to get to do one to the Palme winner because it's this weekend and timing being what it is, unless I do a live stream late at night or something like that. I probably won't be able to do that. But I do have a video that I'm working on, a script that I finally got done writing, but the fact that it took me that long to write it, now I'm like, well, I don't know if I can get the video out before the before the Cannes Festival ends, but it's my top 10 Palme d'Or winners of all time. So I went through the history of the Palme, what movies have won it, and I literally just picked out the 10 that were my personal favorites from that list of films, and I finally got the script written. I did like a little blurb for each film. I rewatched a couple of them because I had not seen them in a long time. I'm like, will these still be in my 10? And spoiler alert, they were, very highly actually. So I'm hoping to get that out by the end of the week before the festival ends, or at least by Sunday. But let me go ahead and give you my official predictions, and this will be on the Award Expert app also. Make sure you follow me over there, and a huge shout out. I try to tag them below in all my videos as well, but Cole and Justin especially, Brother Bro, for the creation of that wonderful app. I am a patron of theirs over there and give them money every month to keep that thing going. You guys should do so too if you're an awards season junkie like I am. I think I'm going to leave All of a Sudden as my predicted Palme d'Or winner. I will be removing Hope, which I had in there as a possible, but I'll be taking that out. Same thing with Sheep in the Box. I'll be removing that as well. I do think if All of a Sudden wins the Palme d'Or, that you're probably looking at Fatherland or Fjord to get that Grand Prix. I think I said Grand Jury earlier, and I'm so sorry. That's a different festival. The Grand Prix prize, which is the runner-up, essentially. So I'm going to go ahead and say Fatherland from Mubi will get the Grand Prix. Powell Polakowski is a well-loved and well-known filmmaker. I mean, so is Christian Mungiu, especially with Cannes. But I think if I'm trying to be logistical, which I probably shouldn't be, but if I am being that, I already have Neon winning the Palme. So do they need to get the Palme and the Grand Prix? They could, of course, they're dominant at Cannes, but I'll go ahead and give it to Fatherland for the Grand Prix. And then the one I was talking about, the jury prize, which is 3rd place, the Prix du Jury. I don't know if I said that right, I'm not French. That would be Ford, but I think I'm actually going to put Minotaur for that one, I think. I'm going to give that to Minotaur. I'm probably going to do, let me lock that in real quick. I'm doing it on Award Expert as I'm talking to you guys. So that would be the Palme d'Or. All of a Sudden, Fatherland, and Minotaur. And then I think for screenplay, that's where I'll do Fjord. So I'll do Fjord getting the jury prize, which is essentially the screenplay prize for Christian Mungiu. I will leave All of a Sudden in the mix there as well. I'm going to remove Sheep in the Box there because that's not going to happen. I'm very depressed about that, by the way. And then I'll probably also put Minotaur there as well. For the actress prize, I'm giving it to Sandra Hüller for Fatherland, but I do have Virginia Efira and Renate Reinsva from Fjord. Efira would be from All of a Sudden. Renate, of course, from Fjord. Those are my 3 actress picks, with Sandra Hüller winning there. For actor, I want to say Javier Bardem. I do. And I also want to say Sebastian Stan. I do. But for some reason, I'm not going to. I think I'm going to go Hans Ziesler for Fatherland as my actor pick, the actor prize, with Javier Bardem from The Beloved and Sebastian from Fjord being the runners up there. That's what I had in there already. And, him playing Thomas Mann, I don't know, I just see it happening. So I'll leave that there. And then for director, I think I'm going to have to give it to Zivantsev for Minotaur, another movie film, by the way. And right behind him would be Hamaguchi for All of a Sudden and Powell Polakowski for Fatherland. I think Andre's narrative and his lineage and his kind of return to cinema, and with the film having such rave reviews that I saw that it was getting, and I didn't give it any of the other awards here in terms of predictions, I feel like it's going to win something. And it makes the most sense to me that the direction would get shouted out there and possibly be the win. So that's what I'll do. All this will be in the Award Expert app if I decided to make any last minute changes before Saturday, which is, I believe, when they give out the awards, or most of them. And if I can do a live stream Saturday night, you guys let me know down below if you want me to do that and react to the Palme winners and how off or correct I was in those predictions I just gave you. Let me know what you thought of this discussion. Sometimes I do this like little nonchalant, non-scripted, just kind of, chill session, where we're just passing the blunt around talking about movies. And that's kind of what I'm doing. So I'm excited because Cannes is always the kind of symbolic opening of award season, if you will. So let me know what you guys thought of these films. Which one did I not mention that I should have my eye on for maybe the Palme or some other prestigious prizes there? What film do you think that is an awards player come Oscar season that I didn't mention? Or are you on board with me when it comes to All of a Sudden, Fatherland, and Fjord, which I think are the top 3 for the Oscar Best Picture 10 right now, before we get the results of the prizes that'll be handed out? Let me know all that stuff down below. I really appreciate you guys listening to me ramble about movies that I have not seen yet. You guys are the best. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you're into it, for as little as a couple bucks a month, you can help me keep this thing going, because it is not easy, especially when we get deep into award season. Just click join down below and you can read all about that. And I do have that ranking of the Cannes Palme d'Or winners coming out very, very soon. So I hope you get a chance to check that out as well. I will see you soon in the garage.